Welcome to Mompreneur Mastery, the place where we ditch the mean girl marketing, stop performing for the algorithm, and finally move past those generic, "Is this you?" pain points. I'm your host, Sydney O'Brien, homeschooling mom of 3, military spouse, and content marketing and messaging strategist who knows your business deserves way more than the content hamster wheel. I built my own business between phonics lessons, surprise deployments, and endless "Mom, I need you" moments, so I know exactly how to create marketing that works in the cracks of your real mom life. Around here, we're not chasing trends just for the sake of it, or faking urgency or income claims to trick people into buying. We are going to get laser clear on your message, build real trust with the right people, and create content that sells without you having to sell your soul or your sanity. If you're ready for a strategy that's connection first, fluff free, and built to fit your actual life, you're in the right place. Today, I'm really excited to talk to Caroline because she, like me, made a kind of shift in her business. And she's also the reason that I felt confident in making the shift in my business. So I'm really excited to share her expertise and knowledge with you all in case this is something you have been feeling lately, or if maybe you're showing up in a way that doesn't quite feel like you or doesn't feel aligned, if your work doesn't feel aligned. So, Caroline, can you tell us a little bit about the changes you made and why?
So I have been in the online business world for, I don't know, 10 plus years now. And I've had several iterations of my business. And this last one was, I would dare say, one of my best. I was a podcast strategist and manager and editor. And I had grown that business, the way that everybody said I should grow my business, right? Like I did the whole agency thing. I had a team of 6. Plus, at sometimes we were running between 20 and 30 podcasts a week. And it felt very, I don't know, it was really interesting. Like, I remember we rebranded my business because I wanted to take my name off the sign. And I kept saying that, like, I wanted to take my name off the sign. And so it became this thing that I was very disconnected from. Like, the business was running without me, it was great. And then AI came onto the scene and kind of took over the podcasting industry and how podcasts were created. And it really changed the work that we were doing. And it was definitely one of those like evolve or die moments. And I will be completely honest with you, I did not evolve. I was like so anti AI when it first came onto the scene. But it was also right around that time that I started thinking to myself, because remember, I had taken my name off the sign. I had always had an agency. I'd always had like a someone who managed my team for me. So when I started stepping back into the work, I was very much realizing that that was not the work that I wanted to be doing. And I also knew that what I wanted to be doing was much deeper. I wanted to be coaching. I wanted to be working with people. And through all of this, I was also going on like this really big life spiritual journey of my own. And I don't know, I just was really feeling called. It's hard to explain, but I really, really was feeling called to do something deeper. And so I decided to take some certifications, see if it was something I was interested in. And of course, as I was taking my certification classes, I fell in love with it and even more. And I felt like life is too short. Why wait? And decided to completely change my business. I transitioned everything. I rebranded back into my name. So the business is now my name, which is really funny. And instead of being a podcast strategist, I am now a spiritual life coach. So big switch.
Yes, very big. But I really love this for you, honestly, just as someone who worked with you both before when you were doing podcast strategy and now after. The way you get so excited about your work now is catching. Working with you now was such a great experience, and it's just talking to you about it, I can tell it just feels so much better for you.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I had done coaching for many years, like because I was
Mhm.
working with podcasters who were creating content. And you and I have talked about this a lot off air in our own time, but when you're creating content, there's something about it that brings up a lot of personal stuff. And I found myself like I wasn't coaching people on their podcast. I was coaching them through like confidence and sharing what really mattered to them and how to show up in a way that feels aligned. And so it was really interesting because before I even like decided that I was going to completely switch the way that I worked, I was already sort of working in that way and already touching on a lot of the things that, I would later learn in my coaching classes. It was so funny because I was taking my first, so I got us two spiritual certifications in spiritual coaching, and then I got one in life coaching. And it was so funny because as I was taking them, I was like, yeah, I've been doing this. Yeah, I've been doing this. Like, yeah, this is the stuff I've been working on with my clients this whole time. And so it really was a natural progression for me, but I think stepping into it fully has just completely changed how I show up in the world in the best way.
Mhm. And I feel like creating content once you are more excited to share like what you're doing and it doesn't feel like this stressful thing is always so nice too. It makes it so much
Oh,
easier.
oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about this more, but like, not only has it changed the way I create content, it's changed how I feel about the content I create, and it's changed how
Mhm.
I feel about the time that I spend creating the content that I create. Like, it's been this complete transformation of like how I'm actually showing up online. And it's been really fascinating to go through that because I literally went from in my podcasting business, I hated creating reels, like hated creating Instagram posts because it felt so performative to, oh, I actually like this a lot, to now I've evolved to this place of I don't have to do that. So do I want to? And like not even like feeling that like outward, that external pressure from the online business world to show up anymore. Like that is completely gone. And it's really fascinating how much that has shifted just because I've stepped into full alignment with the work that I'm doing. It's really interesting to actually think about and talk about.
Yeah. I'm seeing that in how I create content as well now, like an Instagram strategist, like I was. I felt like I had to be on top of all the trends and like pay such close attention to these things and like post on Instagram pretty consistently. And now it's just like, I'll do it when I'm ready. It's just like a huge weight off my shoulders, and I can easily talk about like what I want to say without feeling that like pressure to be like, oh, I'm an Instagram strategist. I have to get like the highest reach. I have to like hop on this trend to show I know my stuff. But it's also like I have always said vanity metrics don't matter. And I feel like I feel that even more now that everything feels more aligned. Like when you're speaking to the right people and like your truth about what your work is and your mission and everything, it that is so much more impactful than focusing on like numbers and trends and stuff.
Yeah, it's been really fascinating because I have noticed in the last couple of weeks, especially, well, maybe the last month, let's be honest, the engagement that I have experienced with my content, the comments on YouTube, the people reaching out to me to say, "Oh my gosh, I identified with this," has like shot through the roof. And when I was doing podcast strategy, I was always trying to create podcast episodes that were an example of really good podcast strategy. And I was getting very burned out. Like, I was tired of talking about podcast strategy because I've been talking about it for like 5 years at this point. But also, B, it just didn't feel like me. It felt, like I said, performative. I use the word performative a lot because I think that's something a lot of us experience, especially in the online space, is this very performative way of creating content. Especially those of us who are B2B people. Like, we feel like because we work with business owners, we have to have everything together and it has to look perfect. And I found myself becoming obsessed with that to the point that it was detrimental to my podcast and my podcast growth. And since I've just like released all of that, and I'm also like fully embraced this experimentation, like I'm just going to try different stuff because I can now, because nobody's watching me. Like, I don't care. It's been interesting. My podcast downloads have shot up, my engagement's up. When I post on Instagram or TikTok, I get tons of new followers, tons of likes, tons of comments, and I'm not trying. And I think that has been such a huge realization for me, because I mean, I have literally spent the last 10 years of my life, 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 10 years of my trying so hard in the online business space. And I think that's just really a testament to that when you're doing something that is fully aligned and you're able to show up fully as you and not be performative, then all of that stuff is just natural and you don't have to fight for it quite so much.
Mhm. I love that so much. I'm so happy for you. I know I said it already, but I really am. Like that is just like the dream, I think. Now, have you noticed any changes to like I feel like a lot of the times our business and personal lives kind of mesh. Have you noticed that the positivity you're getting from your business or into personal life, like less stressed? Are you feeling better?
Oh yeah, 110,000%. And that was a huge catalyst for me making this shift as well. As much as I love and I still love podcasts so much, I think it's an incredible medium that everybody should embrace. But as much as I loved it, I it was a very stressful gig. It was stressful to wake up every morning and, like, check the feeds and, if a client emailed me, I would, like, drop everything in my life. I homeschool my kids. So it felt very intrusive into my life and like you said, very stressful. Because the work I do now is so centered on what's going on inside, it's almost like a huge excuse for me to, like, take the time to work on my inside. Like, I mean, my life is so much more balanced than it ever was, but I also feel more like myself than I ever have. And that also was a really huge part of the journey was, like, rediscovering who I was. Because I'm a 40-something mom. I've been through a lot in my life, and like I said, I've been in the online business world for 10 years. And I've spent the bulk of that time trying to emulate the people that I see around me. And when I stopped doing that and started being myself fully, it just like bled into everything. And it really for me started with I saw this really great TikTok one day and I feel so terrible because I didn't save it, so I can't credit this person. But somewhere in the middle of my journey I saw a TikTok and she said dress to make your 15-year-old self proud. And that, like, changed my life because I immediately was like, my 15-year-old self would be so mad. Like, she would just be reeling, like, "What have you done, Caroline? Like, we weren't gonna have kids, we were gonna live in the city, and we were gonna wear all black. Like, what are you doing? We were gonna have tattoos and piercings. What's going on?" And and so I started with, like, just making some little shifts like that, and it was funny how easier it became to show up online when I started, like, being myself in my everyday world. Does that make sense? Like, it's all connected. That I think that's what we forget is how much the work that we're doing is so connected to everything else in our lives.
It absolutely is. And I feel like your 15-year-old self and my 15-year-old self would be friends
Oh,
because
totes.
I was like absolutely the same way. And I totally saw that same TikTok and was like, you know what? This is true. And then I went shopping and was like, I need to, yeah. And that was like a huge part of it for me too. That's so funny. Like that same
Yeah.
TikTok. Yes, absolutely. That's what that shopping trip actually is why I got that Easy Bake Coven shirt that you like.
Oh my gosh, that is my favorite shirt. No, I every time you wear that shirt, I send you a message and I'm like, "I want your shirt." Like,
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah. It's so good. Yeah, that's so
Love it.
funny. Because there is so much as we want to like put up boundaries and separate like work life from personal life, I think when it's kind of impossible when you're an online business owner like we are. I don't know. It seems very difficult, especially when, you and I also homeschool, so we're doing it like in these like weird kind of pockets of time, like schedule wise, it just makes it really hard to separate it completely. So finding a way to make it work together so you're not kind of like resentful, maybe might be the word I want, of like the time I was working on like work when I wanted to be with the kids or when I was with the kids and I was like, I have this email that I need to respond to, that like stressed out feeling. I hated it. And that was also a big catalyst for me. Do you think when you talk to other people, that's like one of the big indicators there's a shift that needs to be made?
Yeah, I think that is a huge one that I see a lot. It's this idea of the shoulds, right? Like, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, because that's what we've seen. And I know that we have all heard people say, like, you can build a business the way you want to, just like you can build your life, but it feels so unattainable. It feels so hard because what we are modeled is not that at all. And let's be honest, we live in a very, like, our culture is very hustle oriented. Most of us who are my age were raised by post World War II work ethic. Like, you need to have a job, you need to have benefits, you need to have the house, the car, the 2.5 kids and the dog. Like, there are all these shoulds that are in our lives. And I think what happens to a lot of people is they follow the shoulds. They do the shoulds all the time, whether they know they're doing them or not. And then they wake up one day and they realize that everything around them is a should and not something that is in alignment. And it may not be everything. For me, it wasn't everything. My kids are not out of alignment. Okay, I love them. I love my kids. I love my husband. I love the home we built. But just like you said, how I was spending my time in those pockets was not how I wanted to be spending my time. And I think what happens is we don't know an alternative. It's hard for us to find an alternative because we want to be successful. We want to have a successful business. We want to be great parents. We want to be great partners, all of those things. And so it's hard to find our path. And I think a lot of that comes down to listening to your inner voice, which is really, really hard. We live in a very noisy, chaotic time. It's really hard to hear ourselves. And it's especially hard to hear yourself when you're having to be everything for everyone else. And so I find that it's really like a catalyst of a lot of things. But I definitely think, so I'm running a challenge this week, and day one of the challenge was like looking around and what are the things that I'm carrying that I don't need to be carrying, because we all are carrying so many things. And that's just like with my business. I was carrying the success of my clients' podcasts on my shoulders all the time. And I felt like, no, I would give them all the things, I would make the plan, and if they didn't follow it and weren't successful, I still placed that responsibility on myself. And it wore me down. And I think especially in such a, in the online business world where everything is, like you said, vanity metrics. Everything is numbers, 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 numbers. After a while, those numbers start to feel more important than the actual work you're doing. And, I've worked with people recently where it wasn't really about creating the thing or having the numbers. It was really about, how do I feel when I'm doing this? And so to your point about, like, building a business that actually works for your life, like, what would that look like if we actually stopped and said, how do I feel about this? And so it's been a really interesting experiment to be on this side of, like, the transition, like having changed my business. And now, because I'm basically starting over from scratch, I get to stop and say, well, what actually feels good? And I just think if we actually let ourselves do that with a lot of things in life, it would totally change how we felt about the things that we spend our time doing.
I 110% agree. And when you were talking about how like we live in like a very like hustle oriented world and it's very noisy, it super is. And I think as online business owners, when we spend so much time online for like networking and marketing and doing research, and especially if you're a solopreneur and you don't have a team and you're trying to learn like marketing over here, like maybe bookkeeping, podcasting, like all these different facets for your business, and following this things other people tell you you have to do for it because you just don't know. It's very easy to kind of get caught up in that. And then all of a sudden, everything is too much.
Yeah.
It's also kind of, and I was talking about this with someone earlier today, even, I kind of hate some of online marketing right now because so much is like, oh, you have to do it this way. You have to use my specific framework
Mm.
or something. Like it's the only way to get results. And that's never the case. There's always so much context and nuance that needs to go into finding whatever your version of success is. But because we spend so much time online and it is so noisy there, it's like so easy to get caught up in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about so I kind of made this like last ditch effort with my podcast business before I transitioned everything. I knew that I wanted to use the term voice keeper. This had like come to me in like a moment of just light bulbs everywhere, sheer genius.
Mhm.
And I fell in love with it. And so I was like, what if I turn everything into the voice keeper and I try to make podcasting feel really woo woo? And I built a shop. I set up all kinds of funnels. I had, email automations out the wazoo. I mean, I probably spent hours upon hours upon hours upon hours. And I was taking advice from friends, trying to build businesses the way that they had built their business and not really thinking like, you know, what is available to me and what feels good to me. Like I
Mhm.
didn't take any of that into consideration. And probably about a month into having all of that set up and running and doing, I was like, I don't wanna do this. It and I think that's okay. I think sometimes we have to do things to know that we don't wanna do them. But it really was like I set something up wanting it to feel a certain way, but set it up in a very old school marketing way. And I think about that sometimes and I'm like, "Man, no wonder that didn't feel the way I wanted it to feel." And it's funny because now I've, like, literally pared it down. I have one automation. I've moved everything over to Substack. I'm actually considering moving my email list over to Substack. Like, I have pared everything down so much to, like, the bare minimum, and it feels amazing. And honestly, like I said, the response has been way better than it was when I had all of those boxes checked. And so, I just would caution anyone, like, I know a lot of us are out there selling formulas and things like that, but when you see those courses and those $25, here's my, email automation that gets me $5,000 every week kind of advertisements, like, yeah, purchase them, look at them, see what they're doing, but also weigh that against how you want your people to feel and the experience you want them to have in your world. And is that the right thing for you? And I think we lose track of that. Somewhere along the way, we get so concerned with conversion that we forget that, especially in this day and age, people are being like inundated. They don't want to be converted. They want to be understood. They want to be felt. They want to feel like they are part of your world. We talked a lot about this with podcasting and how we're creating episodes to make people feel. And so I think it's really funny that we forgot to also apply that to all the other areas of marketing. A side note too, because I do want to say, because I think we've been talking a lot about like the hustle culture and there's also something I see online happening a lot, which is this very performative version of self-care and a very performative version of like the opposite of what we're talking about. And I really think like that is the ultimate problem with the online space is it has become very performative. It's a money-making thing, right? And so I just would caution anybody, like, I'm also not telling you to like create this amazing aesthetic where you're like meditating and you're wearing the flowy dresses every morning and your kids are like drinking tea at the table. Like, no, like this is real life stuff and it can apply and work for you in real life. It doesn't have to be aesthetic.
Absolutely. And I realized, like, after I said this thing about frameworks, I literally do sell, like, a framework, but the thing I
I
do
do
tell my
too.
clients is, like, you gotta understand it's just like an outline, and there's gonna be changes for everyone. Like, mine is, like, the 5 steps to sales, but sometimes, like, step 2 is a little longer for some people, or step 3 is, or there's so much nuance. So I'm always a little wary of, like, the super word for word templates and things, or people that
Yes.
I love having a framework or an outline so I know, like, what boxes need to be checked. Because obviously you have to get, like, someone from point A to point B before they work with you, but the way you get them there is gonna be different for everyone, I think. And
Yes.
then as well the work itself, because like you said, you tested out, like, having the shop and then pared everything back down to the basics. I'm literally doing that right now, like, all my offers, just, like, getting rid of so much and minimizing it so it works better for my life, my levels, But also, I think when you were talking about being inundated with marketing, we're kind of over all of the like super AI content and we're kind of craving that personal connection. So I am really leaning into more things like one-on-one type of work, even if it's just like a one-time project, not retainer services, because I'm seeing a lot of people being way more interested in that now than those
Yeah.
plug and play templates that might have gotten this person $20,000, but it doesn't mean it will for you, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. I think the question that I like to ask a lot is like, what do you actually want and how do you want to spend your time?
Hmm.
And I know that that has led me to create the offers that I've created. I meet with an accountability partner twice a month, and it was so funny because a few weeks ago we were talking about, the packages I was creating, the things, and she was like, "Caroline, how are you gonna do that?" And I was like, "I don't know." And she was like, "Well, then maybe you should build something different." And I was like, "Oh, you're right." And I think those are such important questions to ask ourselves when we're doing any of this kind of business building activity. To me, there's definitely a lot of strategy, but I think there's also a lot of, like you said, nuance and how do I want to live my life? And how can this help me do that?
Hmm. Absolutely. I think especially knowing my listeners are mostly mom business owners and there's so many like different phases of motherhood, you got to be able to kind of adjust as needed. I don't want to commit to something that's going to take a lot of time if in a couple months my kids are going to all sign up for 5 different sports. I'm not going to have the time, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that has been such a lesson for me this year. I have a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 5-year-old. Yes, yes, bonus baby. And my older two, they're getting so busy. They're teenagers, I have one in ninth grade. She's doing all the things right now. And I am running in 3 different directions on any given day. And this year especially has been super challenging because I mentioned I homeschool. Well, now, just because of their ages, I'm literally doing 3 different curriculums. I mean, luckily the high schooler, she's doing college classes and stuff, and she can kind of run her own day, but I mean, when I sit down, I'm literally managing 3 different very different needs. It's not like when my 2 oldest were little, we would do everything together. It was beautiful. It was very aesthetic, let me tell you. It's not aesthetic anymore. And so I've had to make a lot of adjustments of my expectations of the workload that I can handle and the services that I can offer. And, for me in this moment, it doesn't make sense to be taking on a ton of one-on-one clients. Like, I just don't have the time. I literally have like 1 day set aside for calls. And so then I have to get creative and say, well, okay, if that's the case, what can I do to bring in income and still do the work that I want to do? And so that's definitely been like Caroline's personal challenge in this moment. And even as school has started, I feel that even more harder. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, like I'm not going to be able to meet with 4 to 5 clients a week. There's just no way. Like, there's no way unless you want my 5-year-old in the meeting with us. Like, that's just how it would be. So, I think that that's something really important, like, to give yourself permission to change. Like, you can evolve and change, and you can evolve and change your business to fit your life, and it's okay. Like, it's okay. I am closing down a membership right now for my podcasting business, and it's been really hard. It's been really hard because I'm saying goodbye to something that was a dream of mine for a very long time, and I've been holding on to it because I didn't wanna let go. But it's time. It's time to let go. They don't need me anymore. They're good. They've gotten all the strategy they need, and it's time for me to do something else that's more in alignment with what I wanna do. And that's okay. And you know what? Nobody has sent me an angry email. They might be disappointed, but nobody has, like, blacklisted me because, I handled it well and I did all the things and whatever. But I just wanna share that as an encouragement because I think sometimes in the online business space, it can be very scary to make big changes. And, I mean, if anybody has made a big change, it's definitely me, and I'm not starving yet, so, we're doing good.
That's very good. Yeah, that was something that was like a big concern for me when I worked with you on the Voice Keeper Awakening. what would happen with my membership, because I feel like for me that was like one of the big sources of like stress and burnout, and being able to talk with you about what could change, how I can make it fit my life, but also meet like my clients' needs was amazing. And like, I, as of this recording, I haven't announced like the big changes yet outside of the membership itself, but I've made like the with the members have told made the changes with the members that are already there, and everyone was super excited about it and like stayed in. I gave them the option to like, absolutely, you don't have to continue. I know this is a big change, but everyone was excited about it and stayed. And it was like a really validating, like reaffirming thing where I'm like, this is right. This is right for sure.
Yeah, because you believed it was right, right? Like,
Hmm.
you believed it was right. You were holding the space and the energy for your people. And what's interesting, I think, about the shift that you've made is you are making the shift that we all have been wanting to make in our online marketing. Like, I remember when we talked about it the first time, I was like, yeah, that makes total sense to me. Like, I mean, I had no hesitation. I was like, yes, yes, that is what needs to happen in this day and age. Like, that feels right for what's happening in the world. And I think your confidence in that, especially after we talked, and you were like, yes, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. This is my mission. This is my goal. Like, I feel like when you can clarify all of that for yourself and communicate it authentically and confidently, then your people are going to feel that. You said to me at the beginning of this that seeing my energy. Well, my energy is this way because I am excited about what I'm doing. Like, I am in love with the work that I'm doing. And 2 years ago, I was not in love with the work I was doing. So, like, no wonder I wasn't getting any new leads or whatever, because my energy was not there. And so I think that's a really important distinction to make as well. People, they feed off of what we're doing. And everything you're doing right now, you're doing with such conviction that everybody in your world is like, yes, this makes sense for me. And it's not gonna make sense for everybody. Listen, I am shifting from, like, podcast strategy to not. So, it's been interesting because I've had a couple long-term members and clients be like, "Really my thing," and I'm like, "I'm still here if you need me though," you know? And so it's, being open to those conversations, being okay with them, and knowing that, like, what you are doing is what you are supposed to be doing. Everybody's gonna be on board with that.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like it's when you make a big shift like that, you kind of have to expect that some people are just not going to be aligned, but that's totally fine. Like they will find other people that they do align with, as will, you as the service provider. So it
Right,
happens.
exactly.
Mhm. I love that so much.
So, one of the things that I have come to realize in my journey is that meditation has become a huge part of my life. And honestly, my daughter's life as well. She has a chronic illness and stress is a trigger for her. And so I was like, oh, well, what do I do with this information? Of course, I go and get certified to teach meditation. So, because that's what Caroline does. She goes and learns it. I recently learned that I'm a projector in human design, which makes a lot of sense because I am constantly like, is there a class? I'll take it. Is there a class? I'll take it. Like, and that's a big projector thing. So, anyways, when I created this meditation, I created it with the idea that we all need a moment before we create, before we, I don't know, record a podcast, create a YouTube video, to check in with ourselves and make sure, is this aligned with what I want to be doing, with how I want to be sharing, how I want to be showing up in the world? Is this true to my voice and to me? And so I created a meditation called the Voice Keeper Meditation. It's free. You can head to carolinehole.com/meditation and grab that. And let me know if it helps. I'm a big believer in like creating ritual and moments of like pause and quiet before you do anything that is going to have a lot of impact. And I know a lot of us right now, we don't want to just add to the noise, we want to rise above it. And so I have last couple people I've worked with, we've even created like their own ritual before they create content or before they, however they're showing up in the world, before they go into a board meeting or whatever, just so you have that moment to pause and be like, is this coming from a true place? And so that's what I hope that meditation does. So go check it out. Let me know if it helps you. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of meditation. So if you ever want to chat about it, I'm over here doing it.
I love that because we did one also before our call to like talk about all the changes. And that was like super helpful to just really like take a minute and like slow down and hone in on what we're actually trying to focus on. Cause yeah, I feel like it's the perfect thing for like the anti performative, anti like hustleness that we always see online.
Yeah, I think that it's so important. We're talking about transitions here. And I think when we're making big shifts and transitions, it is really important to take those quiet moments to listen. I was never a big journaler. I was never a big slow down person. I have always been go, 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 go. The way I live my life now is so completely opposite of how I've lived my life for many, many years. And I have anxiety and I wonder why. And taking that time to slow and quiet your brain and say like, what is actually trying to come through, or what do I actually want to do, is really powerful. And it does take some time to develop the skill to listen inward and be like, but I just want everybody to know that yourself, you know best. You just have to learn to listen. And so that's one thing that I really try to do with all of my clients is teach them how to listen to that inner voice. Because when you start making these decisions, whether it be business, life, 9 times out of 10, you already know what to do. You're just not listening. So yeah, I'm glad that resonated with you so much. And I just really encourage everyone to take a moment to take a deep breath before you do any kind of deciding, brainstorming, anything. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has like a ripple effect from there, not even just for creating content, but how you show up in other places and live your life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's not just about, I've always said this even back when I was creating podcasts. Content is just an extension of ourselves. It's an extension of who we are in the world, what we believe, how we think, how we teach, all of those things. And so for me, it's never been very separate. And when you connect the two, I think it's when your content just becomes so much more powerful.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It is always a pleasure. I'm really excited to share this with everyone, and I will put the link in the show notes for your meditation and your Instagram and on podcast, all the things.
Thank you so much, Sydney. You're doing just amazing things. And I'm just so honored to be your online business friend. So thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you.
That's it for this episode of Mompreneur Mastery. If you're building a business around your life, not the other way around, and you're tired of being told to hustle harder to make sales when you're already hustling at 110%, I hope this gave you a breath of fresh air. And if it did, I would love it if you left a quick review or shared this with another mom entrepreneur who is ready to market with more strategy and way less stress. And if you want to see what a cohesive content map across multiple platforms with strategic messaging looks like, check out the link in the show notes to grab your free copy of the Buyer Journey Content Map. I'll see you next time.